Back in 1998, most American households still had landline phones. I kind of miss that, sort of, right? I do know I was having kids, for sure. And a new internet search engine called Google. Do you remember that thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember that when you would pick up the phone, you get knocked off the internet.
That was so annoying.
That was annoying, yeah. Cell phones and the internet really started to explode into the mainstream, though. Pollsters dialed up Americans on those landlines to get their best predictions for the futuristic year of 2025. Some of their guesses surprisingly accurate. CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton joins us now to break down some of those predictions. Harry, what did Americans get right?
You know, I will just note, I remember the landlines. You can still get a landline, Brianna. It's not like they've gone away. I guess the copper part of it has, but I can get you a landline. Maybe that's what I get you for the new year. But that would not be a bad gift. But in terms of what Americans got right, you look back to 1998, you know, there were a lot of alien movies that were coming out in the late 90s, right? You had Independence Day, you had Mars or Mars Attacks, you had all these things. And so they asked Americans, you know, will we in fact make alien contact by 2025? The majority of Americans, vast majority, 2 and 3 said no. Just 25% said yes. Now, I know there are some really weird people out there, but I don't think that they qualify as aliens. I know some people think I'm from another planet, but I don't qualify as an alien either. They would have to look something like this. And while I think that's a good-looking fella, I don't think he shares that much of a resemblance to me.
Jury's out on Harry. I don't know about that. Or so he claims. Yeah.
Whatever. You are my favorite. Whatever. All right, Harry, so what did we get wrong?
All right, what is one thing we got wrong? Well, this one actually surprised me, which was a prediction back in 1998 for 2025 was we would do most of our shopping online. The majority of Americans said yes, we would, 56%. But in fact, the correct answer was no. 43% of Americans got this right back in 1998. It turns out that most consumers still actually do most of their shopping in brick and mortar stores, and more than that, they actually prefer it. So for all of the talk, you know, about Cyber Monday and all the shopping we do on Amazon, in fact, the clear majority of shopping we still do is in person, and that means that back in 1998, we got that one wrong.
If you had asked me today, I would have gotten that one wrong. I didn't know that most people shop brick and mortar.
I used that Google, which they were inventing back in the late 90s.
Yeah. Smart guy. Anything else that we were way off on back in 98?
All right. Was there anything else that we were way off on back in 1998? How about this? The idea that we would mostly or regularly that folks would live to the age of 100. If we look back in 1998, 61% of us said, yes, Americans would often live to 100. But now the answer is, while there are plenty of folks who live to 100, that really isn't anywhere close to being the norm. It's more of an occasional thing. That's the reason why, of course, you know, when we have stuff like the Today Show, it's, oh, so-and-so made it to 100. That's still a very big event. Life expectancy is still at about 80 years old. And I'm not sure I want to live to 100, although I will note, although she's not anywhere close to 100, today is my mother's birthday. So happy birthday to my mom. I hope you do make it to 100.
Big happy B-Day to Harry's mom, Mega. Okay, so take us out with a winner. What else did we get right here?
Okay, what else did we get right? How about this one? Cloning. The idea that we would clone humans regularly. We haven't cloned a single human yet, and it turns out 60% of us got that right. We said, no, there would be no human cloning. Remember, this was right around the time we were cloning sheep. Just 37% of us said yes. I don't think we need to clone anyone, and we certainly don't need to clone me. I think one of me is more than enough.
No, it's not.
Well, rest in peace, Dolly, the sheep, wherever she is.
Yeah, that's right.
Are the Mets going to win a World Series by 2050? I think we both know the answer is no.
No, the answer is no, but I do have two predictions for 2050. Number one, the Bills will win a Super Bowl by 2050. And number two, on one that I think I put maybe a little bit more money behind, I do think that driverless cars, while they may not be a majority by 2050, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of them in society.
I mean, that's a safe bet, Harry.
Yeah.
Well,
Come on. Get out on a limb, buddy. Come on.
That was my Bills winning the Super Bowl by 2050. I have to one on a limb and one that's easy.
We'll see.
All right.
If they win it, we may see Wolf Blitzer prancing through the streets of D.C. wearing nothing but a Buffalo Bills helmet. So cross fingers for that. Harry Enton, thank you so much.
See you later, buddy.
The year was 1998. It was awesome. It was a really great year. It was the Titanic. It was the movie. You could browse the internet on your TV. Washington's then biggest scandal, the Clinton impeachment. Simpler times. Gallup and USA Today called 1,000 Americans on their landline phones and got their best predictions for the futuristic year of 2025. Some, believe it or not, were on point. In those 27 years, gay marriages would become commonplace in the United States. Americans would have elected a black president. We're back at the table with our panelists. I do think that's interesting that the two that they absolutely kind of got right were gay marriage would become more commonplace. Obviously, gay marriage is legal, and that there would be a black president. There were a few others that they missed on, but the ones that they got right, what do you think about those?
I mean, I think it speaks to how people felt coming in the end of the 90s into the 2000s of like, oh, the world is changing in a way that people are sort of getting along in better ways. 1998 was a tough year in some ways. Seinfeld went off the air. That was hard for me. But I think that the striking number for me that's in that poll is how people felt positively about the state of the country. You probably have those numbers there, but it's in the 60s for 1998. Now it's at 24%. People feel good about the state of the country. And that really speaks to so much of what's going on in our culture and our politics in sort of an amazing way. Some of the stuff that we take for granted now would have been magic fantasy for people in 1998. Whether it's our phones or easy Amazon deliveries or all that stuff.
Like all the things that basically led us to this point where everyone
indeed,
hates everything.
but you see that maybe it's the abundance of choice, or maybe it's all the things that come with that choice, that people are really quite frustrated and pretty pessimistic about everything that's going on. And what I think if you ask people these same polling questions, well, not the same ones about gay marriage, but a similar set of polling questions, you would get a much darker set of responses than came from that.
What is interesting, though, is like the stratification based on class. In the polling in 1998, the question of life would be a lot harder or better. What Americans in 1998 predicted, 70% thought quality of life would improve for the rich. Most expected life to get worse for the poor, higher crime rates, poor environmental quality, and lower moral values. A 71% majority said it would be harder to raise children to be good people.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things did come to fruition, right? Aside from the first black president, gay marriage, et cetera, but also they mentioned pandemic. They did mention in that poll also that there was a little bit of doubt as to whether or not the internet would be able to get you deliveries at your home as well. But to Isaac's point, I mean, I was struck by how optimistic it was. And 98 was a good year. I remember that. It was also a sad year, not just for Seinfeld, but it was the breakup of the Bulls dynasty as well back in Chicago.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, but they also won that year. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a premature. We had one more year, I think. We saw Michael Jordan kind of let the follow through hang, but we had one more year.
He had a great time at the Wizards. Honestly, I feel like the breakup between Mike and Scottie in the recent years has been far more devastating for Bulls fans. One of the things interesting is what also happened in 1998, Alayna, and we're not going to do the ageism thing here because the olds at the table, the three of us, not you, will remember that Jesse Ventura was like the shock political story at the time. The wrestler who became the spoiler/governor of Minnesota, Jake Tapper, wrote a book about this. You should check that out. I'm not just saying that because I'm anchoring his show later today.
Tune in.
But I don't think 5 to 7, tune in. But I don't think people maybe realize that like this was a harbinger of what was to come, because there was another celebrity who people kind of scoffed at, mocked at, who now is in his second term as president and has been the dominant figure in American politics for going on a decade.
Yeah, it is crazy, just looking back at this entire time, how much Trump has dominated, that time in between that people obviously weren't predicting then. Look, it was fascinating. I wrote down a lot of it because I was really interested in this, obviously calling everyone up on the landlines. But some of the things that they said, I actually think some of the things that they got wrong were really interesting to me. This idea of they believed that there would be a female president by 2025. That obviously did not happen despite Kamala Harris trying her best. They thought that there would be a cure for cancer. They thought that people would routinely live to be 100. I think that's more likely now than it was, but not at the percentages that people were assuming. And one thing that they got correct but it's just fascinating to me because social media was obviously not a thing really in 1998, was less personal privacy. I mean, I think that's also something, if you just look back at the last 2 decades plus, has completely dominated everyone's entire lives. And you look at the stories about Australia banning, social media, and the way that I think it contributes to both of your points about Americans being in a darker place. I think this idea of less personal privacy and obviously the rise of social media is probably going to be one of those things that we'll be talking about looking back on 20 years from now about how that has impacted daily life and political life for the country.
Real quick.
One thing, as I was doing the research for this segment, I remembered that Method Man came out with an album that year. And the skit on that album, I mean, if you look toward the future, the skit on that album was Donald Trump calling in with a voicemail saying he was calling in from West Palm Beach asking Method Man to release his album. 27 years later, here we are.
The man is ubiquitous.